The year is 1919. The world is reeling from an aftermath of the First World War and the deadly Spanish flu pandemic that swept across nations. But hidden in the shadows of history lies another, lesser-known medical mystery, one that left thousands of people trapped in their own bodies, suspended between wakefulness and unconsciousness. This is the story of encephalitis lethargica, more commonly known as the sleeping sickness. Reports of a strange and terrifying illness first emerged in 1916 during the height of World War I. Physicians in Europe and the United States began documenting cases of patients who suffered from prolonged sleep, extreme fatigue, and an eerie mask-like expression. One of the first prominent doctors to study this condition was Dr. Konstantin von Economo, an Austrian neurologist. In 1917, he described the disease as encephalitis lethargica, a term that translates to inflammation of the brain that causes lethargy. But despite its name, this illness was far more than mere drowsiness. Patients would slip into a deep state of sleep that lasted days, weeks, or even months. Some could be roused for short periods, while others remained in a twilight state, alive but unable to move or respond to the world around them. The disease manifested in strange and varying ways. Some patients developed an intense drowsiness, closing their eyes as if they were struggling to resist sleep. Others suffered from insomnia, unable to find rest despite their bodies wasting away from exhaustion. In severe cases, individuals became catatonic, frozen in rigid postures, unable to communicate. Others experienced violent tremors, muscle spasms, or even psychotic episodes, hallucinating and displaying erratic behavior. Dr. von Economo and his colleagues observed that the illness primarily affected a deep part of the brain, known as the midbrain, which plays a crucial role in regulating movement and wakefulness. Damage to this area resulted in the bizarre mix of symptoms: excessive sleep, paralysis, and, in some cases, severe Parkinson's-like tremors. One of the most chilling aspects of the disease was its unpredictability. Some patients recovered fully, while others remained trapped in their bodies for years. Many died in their sleep, while some lingered in institutions, lost in a ghostly existence. Between 1916 and the early 1930s, the sleeping sickness spread across the world, affecting millions of people. It seemed to peak around 1919, coinciding with the end of World War I and devastating Spanish flu pandemic. Many researchers wondered if there was a connection between encephalitis lethargica and the flu virus, but no definitive link was ever proven. The disease came in waves, striking young and old, rich and poor. Some entire families were affected, with parents watching helplessly as their children slipped into a seemingly endless sleep. Hospitals were overwhelmed, and doctors were baffled. There was no clear cause, no cure, and no way to predict who would recover and who would succumb. In some cases, survivors of the illness continued to deteriorate even after the initial infection had passed. In the decades that followed, many former patients developed severe neurological disorders, including symptoms resembling Parkinson's disease. As the 1920s gave way to the 1930s, cases of sleeping sickness began to dwindle. The epidemic, which had once seemed unstoppable, faded into history. But the mystery remained. What had caused this strange illness? Why had it appeared so suddenly and then vanished just as quickly? Dr. von Economo and the other neurologists suspected a viral infection that triggered an autoimmune response, attacking the brain and leading to severe inflammation. Others believed the disease might be linked to environmental factors or even bacterial infections. Decades later, in the 1960s and 1970s, neurologist Dr. Oliver Sacks encountered surviving patients in institutions who had suffered from encephalitis lethargica decades earlier. Many had remained in a frozen, catatonic state for years. In a groundbreaking experiment, Dr. Sacks administered the drug L-Dopa, treatment for Parkinson's disease, and observed something extraordinary. Some of these patients, long thought lost, suddenly awoke, speaking and moving for the first time in decades. However, their revival was short-lived. Over time, the effects of L-Dopa diminished, and the patients once again faded into silence. Dr. Sacks later chronicled these cases in his famous book, Awakenings, which inspired a film of the same name. Despite advancements in neurology, the cause of encephalitis lethargica remains a mystery to this day. Some scientists continue to investigate its possible connections to viral infections or autoimmune disorders. But without new outbreaks to study, the truth remains elusive. Though it has faded from public memory, the sleeping sickness of the early 20th century left a lasting impact on medical science. It contributed to our understanding of brain inflammation, movement disorders, and the effects of neurodegenerative diseases. And it left behind haunting reminders, stories of individuals who, in a blink of an eye, became prisoners in their own bodies, lost in an eternal slumber. The epidemic of 1919 may be forgotten by most, but its lessons remain. The human brain is a delicate and complex organ, and even today, new and mysterious diseases continue to emerge. What other neurological mysteries remain undiscovered? And could a disease like encephalitis lethargica ever return? Only time will tell.